John, and I'm coming toward the end here this morning. In chapter 15, verses 1 through 4, he then tells them not to stumble over their responsibilities. Remember, he told them that he was the vine and his father was the husbandman. And then verse 4, he says this of John 15, abide in me. See, the commandments shows me God's expectations. And then this abiding business shows me my responsibility. Now, it's tough because it goes against my fallen nature, but you and I know that word abiding simply means to stay. Here's what you and I know about God. The salvation side of our relationship was all of Him. That's why in Ephesians chapter 2, the Apostle Paul makes this statement, for by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. Everything I needed to do, everything needed for my redemption, Jesus handled it all. He clothed Himself with human flesh, come down and walk this earth for 33 and a half years, completely fulfilling the law to perfection. And then was willing to die on a Roman cross, shed His blood to fulfill the righteous requirement of God to atone for sin. All that was given to you and I by one act of faith and trust in Him. But that abiding business is our responsibility. You know, God don't have a spiritual welfare program. He don't do everything for you. That maintaining of the fellowship afterwards, that's a whole different story. And here's how you and I, listen to me now. Here's how you and I don't stumble over that responsibility of abiding. We put a premium in our life on our spiritual walk. It's got to be important to you. If it ain't important to you, who else can it be important to? Every one of us parents are slowly but surely learning as our children get older that we cannot, by proxy, be spiritual for them. Every pastor has to get a hold of that same ideology when it comes to the church. I cannot be, by proxy, spiritual for anybody else, and nobody can be spiritual for me. I have a level of responsibility when it comes to the maintaining of my spiritual life. I'm going to have to make some prioritized decisions in my life about walking with God. And you know, the Bible is clear that if I walk in the Spirit, I shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. And Jesus said, I need you boys to understand something when it comes to this things that you could stumble over, things that could trip you up. He said, make sure that you don't stumble over your responsibilities. It's your job to abide in me. You've heard me say this a bunch, and I'm going to keep saying it till the Lord takes me to the house. You and I right now are as close as we want to be and as we've made effort to be. We're as close to God right now as it is important to us. If I'm not abiding in Him, which means to stay, to be consistent, it's because right now in my life, that's just not the most important thing. Something has taken priority. Now, can I tell you what happens, though, in all these first three areas I've been covering? If we don't give them their proper weight, we'll stumble. If you get to where your spiritual life's all about working by the flesh and not by faith, first point, you'll stumble. If you get to the place where you don't even care anymore to meet any of those expectations and go forward in your Christian life, you'll stumble. And if you don't get serious about your responsibility, these boys were getting ready to be the pastors of the first church. They could not have an unkept spiritual life. He said, boys, I'm telling you, I'm the vine, you're the branch. You got to abide in me. He even goes as far as to tell them this, that he said that if you abide in me, you'll bring forth much fruit and it will remain. In other words, you won't even be fruitful unless you abide. Now let me ask you a question. And I'm not to the last point yet. I'll get there in just a second. You think any of this is indicative as to why so many church-going folk are stumbling all over the place these days? Is it common or uncommon for you to hear about somebody you've known for years, went to church with for years, whatever, threw the towel in and quit? It's getting common, isn't it? Sad, but common. So the Lord here is telling them, I'm going to tell you guys right now, He said, be careful. If you don't take your responsibility of abiding in me seriously, He said, you're not going to make it. You're going to stumble.